You need a 12-month emergency fund. And if you have all of that stuff in place and you don't have credit card debt, then you start to figure out what you can actually, afford to spend your money on. But you got to put the household budget into place. We need to run our households like small businesses easily, 25, 50, maybe 100 transactions every single week. Again, if you have children, it could be much, much higher than that.
You're listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, where you get valuable information you just can't find anywhere else. To thrive in today's trying times, you need the Financial Survival Network, now more than ever. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and get your free newsletter and gift. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.
And welcome. You are listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm your host, Kerry Lutz. Hey, it's only December 3rd. We're just getting into the season. Tis the season to be buying. Deck the halls with advertising. And you got to protect yourself because they're biohacking you. You don't even know they're doing it, but they're doing it. Things like buy now, pay later, and all that good stuff. And our good friend Paul Oster is with us now from betterqualified.com. You got a question for myself or Paul? Please shoot me an email, kl@kerrylutz.com. Paul, welcome back. So this is the season to be buying and going in deeper into debt. And now that the election's over, at least some portion of the population seems to be very happy about it. And what can we expect here?
Well, unfortunately, I think we're going to expect, the same thing that happened last year, that a lot of consumers are going to wake up with a hangover in January, and it's not going to be from, the Christmas punch. It's going to be from putting more money on their credit cards, increasing their credit card balances. It's almost like this, cyclical. Every year, people in a crisis mode at this point in time, and they just fall back and again lean on credit cards. They lean on, now you have this buy now, pay later option, which seems almost too good to be true, and it is, right? So they make it seamless. You get approved instantly, but the problem is, just like when they had first introduced credit cards, or you get asked, if you want to get a discount on your purchases today, all you have to do is apply for a point of sale credit card. And these are marketing geniuses. So what they know are two things. A, you're going to spend more money than you normally would if you open that card or you do something through buy now, pay later. And B, you're ultimately going to carry a balance, and you're paying, interest rates probably above 20% at this point. So whatever discounts that you get, whatever, motivation that you had when you open the card or you use the buy now, pay later program, it just quickly gets eaten up and washed away, and consumers are left, holding the bag or holding the gift, so to speak. Look, there are some consumers, Kerry, that still have debt on their credit cards from last holiday season. And this is not an uncommon, situation. I'm sure you've seen credit card debt is growing and raising at a rate that we've never seen before. So it's a very, very scary situation.
Credit cards going up, like government debt's going up, and it's unsustainable. And really, like on a macro level, it's unsustainable. On a micro level, you can do things to deal with your consumer debt and make it go away, right?
Well, yeah. So the first thing is that when people are coming into this holiday season, and look, we're already in it. We all, Costco had Christmas stuff up, I think around Halloween, right? So this elongate.
It gets earlier. I thought it was Labor Day this year. They put the Christmas stuff.
Yeah. So it's certainly an extended, buying season, and that only leads to consumers again spending more money. I spoke the other day. I was on the news, and they were asking me about Cyber Monday. But Cyber Monday is now Cyber Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Look at Black Friday. They don't really call it Black Friday. It's now Black Friday week, right?
Yeah.
So Amazon and all the online giants, it's not just one day anymore. It's an entire week to entice people to spend money that they don't have. And again, the average consumer, they don't understand, credit cards are the gift that keep on taking, not keep on giving. So, we have to have a budget. How much money can you actually afford to spend on gifts this holiday season? And that answer may be zero. If you have any credit card debt on your credit cards right now, this might be the year that you make something or bake something. And this is something else that I've been stressing. If you give somebody a personalized gift, if it costs you $5, maybe their favorite thing is peanut butter or chocolate. If you give that person a really personable, customized gift, they will remember that. You made them feel good. Think about the gifts that you got last year. You might not be able to remember anything that you actually got or who gave it to you. So we really have to take a step back and be disciplined this year. I've heard this coming into this season. Paul, we've been down this road before, and we always seem to, pull ourselves out of it. But this is a very, very different road. There are more twists and turns. We're traveling at warp speed, and there are just that many more potholes, that we're going to hit along the way. So it's up to us as individuals. Figure out the number. If the number's zero, well, then start making cards, start doing things to help people and figure it out that way. If the number is 200, okay. Now, how many people are on, your good list? And divide that number up. If you divide it equally, it's easy. If you have to, give a couple of people a little bit more, then just do it that way. But if you go in and you just have a number of people in your head, names, and you're going to pick out the gifts online or when you get to the store, that is just simply not the way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. So this budget thing, when you have somebody come in and you know what's going on with them, how do you help somebody create a budget who's never had one in their lives?
It's actually really simple. It's much easier said than done. But look, this is not complicated. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's not complicated. You have to figure out. Basically, we're all on a fixed income. If your income varies, take the last 24 months and divide it up by 24, and that'll be your monthly income. And then you have to figure out your expenses, and I mean all of your expenses. You and I had one of the last shows recently that we talked about. We've become this nation of subscriptions, and the average household is now over $200 a month in subscriptions. Netflix, Spotify, Hulu, Roadblocks, Xbox, PS3, it just goes on and on and on. And if you have a couple of kids, you're easily over $200 a month in subscriptions. So figure out how to cancel your subscriptions. Again, you and I spoke about it. You don't need a company. You don't need to pay a subscription to a company to figure out how many subscriptions you actually have. Do it on your own. Go through your credit card statements and your bank statements and figure out what you're spending your money on every single month. And then it's a numbers game. This is how much money I take home. It's not gross pay. It's net after taxes. This is how much income and revenue is coming into my household. These are our expenses. Are you putting money into a retirement plan? Do you have, we used to say, a 6-month emergency fund? We all now know that's not enough time. You need a 12-month emergency fund. And if you have all of that stuff in place and you don't have credit card debt, then you start to figure out what you can actually, afford to spend your money on. But you got to put the household budget into place. We need to run our households like small businesses easily, 25, 50, maybe 100 transactions every single week. Again, if you have children, it could be much, much higher than that. Who is the CFO of your household? Who's watching the numbers to make sure you can't figure out after, everyone has spent the money. Oh, Dad, by the way, I needed new tires. Oh, by the way, we had to do this. By the way, and then at the end of the month, we're like, wait a second, we went way, way over our budget. So someone has to be watching this and monitoring it almost on a daily basis for sure. Again, unfortunately, most people spend more time on social media and doing all the things that, aren't going to help them. So you got to help yourself.
Yep. I love it. And it's just common sense, right? And but common sense is in very scarce supply these days, isn't it?
Common sense isn't always common. So, and look, when we talk about budgets too, Kerry, I now say you need two budgets, because one is the money, the other one is time. The amount of people right now, consumers are spending an average of 6 hours a week shopping online. And that number goes way up during the holiday season. 6 hours of our lives every single week are spent shopping online. That's crazy. So you have to budget your money and you have to budget your time. Do not go down these, rabbit holes looking, what's the next best thing? What's the latest and greatest? What's the shiniest thing? Oh, look over here, look over there. You can get pinged back and forth, again, for hours and hours and hours, looking for a gift or something for yourself. Look, if you need something, you find it within minutes. If you're just browsing and looking and hoping that something pops up, again, you could be hours into that exercise. And by the way, probably wasting your hard-earned money when you actually click, buy now.
Yeah, so true, man. So true. So it's the case of an ounce of prevention's worth a bankruptcy filing, right?
Yeah, and again, I always talk about consumers. Credit card debt is really, really hurting us. $5,000. If you and right now the average person is over $6,000 in credit card debt. If you have $5,000 in credit card debt and you only pay the minimum payment towards that credit card, it'll take you almost 30 years. That is not an exaggeration. It's going to take you about 30 years to pay it off, and it's going to wind up costing you over $20,000. Think about that. Those are real numbers. That's real time. So the problem is it's become painless. Apple Pay. I mean, I think it's already available now. You can pay with scanning the palm of your hand, your fingerprints, clicks of a button. Again.
I want to pay by spitting in their faces. Can we do that?
Yeah. Well, but then you're going to have to pay a lawyer and you're going to have to post bail. So you got to be careful. Got to be really, really careful.
But yeah, like you go to Whole Foods and you can pay biometrically. I refuse to do that. It's like I can take out my iPhone and scan it, or my watch. I don't need to be doing that. But one serious note, like there is a watchdog out there that's supposed to protect you as a consumer, and we could debate how effective they've been since their formation in 2008. It was Liz Warren's little brainchild called the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and it spent a lot of its existence mired in litigation. They have done some things, arguably, to help consumers. A lot of what they've done is completely useless. The incoming admin wants to kind of do away with this organization. They say it torments and tortures banks. What's your feeling about it?
Well, I think it's like everything, right? You just mentioned it. They have done some good things. One of the things, because we're very, very involved in the real estate industry, they're going after data brokers who literally have access, unbeknownst to us, to our most sensitive non-public information, our names, our addresses, dates of birth, social security numbers. Those things get sold. Our annual household incomes, all of this stuff, how many bank accounts we have, do we have a checkings or savings account? All of that information is sold to other marketing companies without our knowledge. And we just had one of the biggest data breaches in history. And again, I think you and I spoke about it. It almost got no fanfare. It wasn't picked up. It wasn't, people weren't screaming from the tops of their lungs that some third-party data broker who should never have had access to over 200 million files, again, with all of that very sensitive data, and they failed to change the password on their website. They used the default password when they accepted that file and access to that information. They didn't change the password. I mean, it was like the cyber security criminals must have been like, this is crazy. They must have thought it was like clickbait or something. Like, there's no way they didn't change the password. But it came up, when they run their scans, there's an actual software that will tell you this person didn't change the default password. They're still using the same password that was given to them when they opened the account. And it just makes it very, very simple for people to gain access. So the CFPB is going after data brokers, specifically within the real estate industry. When you apply for a mortgage, when you fill out an application, when someone pulls your credit, it's called a trigger lead. That information then gets sold to other banks and companies without your permission. Right. So that's one of the good things they've done. But unfortunately, like you say, like we've talked about, they also impose a tremendous and maybe a ridiculous amount of restrictions. And they put all of these, things in place, and it really hinders our ability and the bank's ability to lend money for people to start new businesses. So I think the organization has to be cleaned up. I think their original intent, they've lost their way, right? So they got to go back to protecting the consumers from the bad guys, the real bad guys, and not be involved in every single, in corporate America the way that they have been.
Yep, agreed. The overreach and their very existence from the get-go is really in question. It comes from attacks on federal institutions that never even gets allocated by Congress, and the Supreme Court partially turned them down, said they weren't constitutional, but they fixed that. And it's like one of those things. Hi, I'm from the government. I'm here to help you, Paul.
Yeah, right. With smoke and mirrors and one hand out this side and taking the money, directly or indirectly out of your pockets with the other hand. So, is
rein in these credit card rates, which are absolutely outrageous. And because the bank can get 20+% interest, they won't make loans to businesses. They allocate their funds towards consumers rather. And that's really the worst thing for the economy, isn't it?
It is. And look, I've now been saying this when I've really started to step back and take a look how that industry has been behaving, and the fees and the amount of money that they've been making, and they just keep pushing the envelope, right? And when you think about it, they're doing that because there is about to be a dramatic change in the way that we pay for things. You have companies like Plaid and Stripe and PayPal and Zelle, and it's going to be bank to bank without paying the middleman. And the middleman are the big credit card companies, Visa, MasterCard, Amex. Why do I need to pay them? Especially debit cards that are credit cards. The merchant has to pay a transaction fee. Why? That money's coming directly out of my checking account. So there's going to be very, very sooner than later, a dramatic shift in the way that we pay for goods and services. And the credit card companies might become extinct, obsolete. We don't really need them at this point in time. There are technologies and softwares that they can, verify and validate that you have the money in your account in milliseconds. So it'll be bank to bank with minimal or no fees for sure. So these credit card companies are saying we better make as much money as we possibly can right now until the government steps in and stops us or fines us. They're just going to continue to push the envelope, and unfortunately, consumers and merchants who accept credit cards will wind up paying the price. And look, you saw it. One of the really, really bad things that happened, after COVID is now the merchants figured out, well, why don't I just pass that fee on to my consumer? And now that so many merchants are doing it, there's no pushback from the consumer. Everyone just says, oh, yeah, it says it right on the bottom. If you're using a credit card, you're going to pay 3.8%. You're going to pay 4%. Whatever that number is, the merchants are now just passing that on to the consumer. And we don't need it right now, right? One of the other things that we have to, consider and talk about, interest rates are coming down, albeit slowly, but I know the cost of goods and services hasn't changed at all. It's probably ticked up even more. So inflation is still a real concern for not just myself, but many of the other analysts that are out there. The cost of goods and services have increased so quickly over the past 2 years. The average family is paying well over $500 for the same exact goods and services that they were paying for 2 years ago. Now, when you couple that coming into the holiday season with hidden expenses, the cost of going out, restaurants have, the price to go out to eat has jumped, it's double digits. It's not 3%. It's not the rate of inflation. It's 18%, 22%. So all of those hidden expenses, travel is way up, clothing, everything costs that much more. And during the holiday season, all of those activities, have a tendency to increase along with just spending money on gifts. So it's all those hidden expenses that come into the holiday season. Again, recreation, socializing, travel, clothing. You just really, really have to be careful here.
Yeah, you're a target. Well, I find it interesting that the credit card business will cease to exist because right now, if you have a phone, Apple can just go right to the bank. They don't really use, I guess Visa and MasterCard get their cut no matter what, but Apple doesn't care what it says, whether it's Visa or MasterCard or American Express. They can just go right to the bank, any bank in the country that's in their network, Apple Pay, and they're taking the money. But with all these other ways to pay, it's all going to be gone soon,
There's no doubt. So, that's like the perfect example. Sooner than later, Apple's going to say, we do not have to pay Visa for that transaction. We can be linked directly to every consumer who uses Apple Pay. We can be linked directly to their bank. Again, through Plaid, Stripe, there's other companies out there, Finicity, and they'll verify that the funds are there and the transaction will go through. You don't have to pay literally 3% on every single transaction. And when it's Starbucks or, $10 here, 20, but it all adds up. But then when you start to think about people putting big ticket items on their credit cards, it could be hundreds of dollars in transaction fees. Why do I have to pay that much? It's not like it's not like digging a hole. The bank and the credit card company don't have to work harder to process a transaction that's that much more money. It's the same amount of work, same amount of software and effort that has to go into it. And yet they charge the same, they charge the same percentage transaction fee, whether it's $2 or $2,000.
Couldn't agree with you more. It's a big grip. maybe it didn't start out as a grift because originally, credit cards, it was all about convenience. You didn't have to carry the cash. And then even the original American Express cards were not credit cards. They were charge cards, a lot different. So I think we'll go back to some charging medium, whether it's Apple Pay or whatever it might be,
That's right. We're never going to go. We're never going to sacrifice the convenience that we've all have now been accustomed to. So you don't walk around with cash. You can literally carry your phone. You don't even need the physical card anymore. None of that stuff's going away. It's just going to be how it's processed. And again, it could be a very, very good thing, or should be a very, very good thing for the consumer. And you're right. The story about the Diners Club card, which was the first, credit's been around forever, right? You could go back to the early 1800s, and credit was being used, back then. Now it's just gotten to a point the day that the banks figured out we can allow the consumer to carry a balance and charge them interest on it. That was a really bad day in this country. So it's not having a card for convenience. You don't have enough cash on you, or you don't have enough cash in your account right now, but you need to make this purchase. So you use the charge card and you have 30 days to pay it off. That's what we need to do.
Yeah. And it's amazing. I just went to Europe to visit my son, and this is the first time. Well, I never even changed any money. I didn't change anything because every place I just swiped, my iPhone, and I have the wallet. And whether you have a Google, Android, it doesn't really matter. And I never converted any currency. I've never done that before, any time on a trip overseas.
Yep. Nope. And you shouldn't have to. You shouldn't have to.
And if I didn't do it, then nobody needs to. Even now, I carry cash, even though I don't, I use it to pay. I just used it yesterday to pay for my haircut, and I pay for the maid. And that's the only thing I really use.
Well, I hope your listeners, take that advice and try and adopt, that lifestyle and that approach to finances, personal finances, because you're that much less likely to get yourself in a pinch and in debt by operating that way.
Yeah. All right, Paul, it's betterqualified.com, and there's a lot of free resources available. I would suggest if you're having issues or you think you really want to visit there, and you can always call Paul as well. And if you have any questions for Paul or myself, shoot me an email, kl@kerrylutz.com. You'll find a link to betterqualified.com in the show notes of this interview on financialsurvivalnetwork.com. And I would just ask, if you visit the site, please sign up for your free weekly newsletter, like over 60,000 of your fellow FSN community members have. Wish everybody a happy, healthy, and financially and fiscally sane holiday. Paul, it's always a pleasure. Be well.
Thanks for having me back on, Kerry.
Thanks for listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, your solution to today's trying times. For the latest, go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.